Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another Inside NFL show. I'm the Mav, as always, and tonight Mullin is joining me. And tonight we'll be covering a few winners and losers of the post NFL draft for fantasy relevant players. Mullin, how are you tonight, mate?
Mate, better than ever. This time of the week is something that I always look forward to. And post NFL draft, a lot of my leagues have just been running into rookie drafts. So I'm on the clock in a couple at the moment. They can wait till after. But yeah, no, loving it at the moment.
Yeah, it's been busy on the rookie front. I mean, I've only had one draft myself that's gone live at some point this off season as such, and I didn't really hold many picks. I held a third rounder and I held a fourth rounder, and they were back end third and fourths as well. So unfortunately, I haven't really had that sort of that itch, let's say, for argument's sake, to draft players just of yet. Getting on the clock is still a good feeling. It just gives you a little warm, fuzzy feeling every time you come back on the clock. Trades are flying in. People want to get back into the draft, and it just makes you look forward to well, I suppose for draft season out in I guess August, September as well. So yeah, no, that's going to be great when that day comes around. It's just that little itch at this point. You know what I mean?
Oh, mate, it's a huge itch, and it definitely will get scratched when that comes down to it. I just love even if you've got no picks in the draft, you can trade in, you can make deals happen, move players. It's just very, very active time for all fantasy managers out there. And yeah, we just can't get enough.
Well, I got Jalen Royals as my 310. I was pretty happy with that, to be honest.
Not a bad
I think
stat.
there's a sneaky little upside there with Jalen Royals. So as a third round pick, he's probably going to take some time to develop and get into to maybe be fantasy relevant. But I think there's a point in time where he might be okay. And look, he's tied against the Kansas City offense, so that's always a good thing too, I suppose.
A good taxi stash, I reckon, for Jalen Royals. If Hollywood Brown is injured, similar to how he was last year, he could slot in there right away. So yeah, definitely one to watch. Nice little taxi,
especially with Rashee Rice as well. Just that unknown. We'll see how that turns out, but did like it. Really did like it. Slipped.
I'm a fan of it.
Slipped. All right, mate. So tonight we are covering, as I said before, our winners and losers of the year for fantasy relevant players post NFL draft. And look, mate, when I'm talking about a big winner, the biggest thing for me is looking at a guy who hasn't been affected at all by any sort of draft picks that a team might have done along the way, or a free agent acquisition, I suppose, because free agency technically is still open. So I think my biggest win or my take from post NFL draft is DeAndre Swift. I think had a really good win. There was massive rumors coming into the draft period that they might go and get Genty. If not, they might go draft another running back at Hampton or maybe take someone on top of the second round. Like there was plenty of options for them to take a running back, and they didn't. They didn't at all. So. Roschon Johnson as well has been pretty disappointing to this point. I think he averaged about 2 yards per carry or 2.5 yards per carry, somewhere in between on last year, on very limited opportunity too, might I add. So DeAndre Swift at this point in time has the keys to the offense at the running back room. There is rumors going around that they might go and get Nick Chubb, who's been training the house down, might I add, in all those post videos and stuff like that. He's been smashing his head against the roof. That's how good he's going, literally. So there's rumors about Nick Chubb coming across to the Bears potentially, but at this point, it is DeAndre Swift's backfield, and that's a good thing for an NFL fantasy and a nice offense. What we think is a nice offense anyway.
Yeah, and not only just because of them not adding a running back in the early rounds, I think they added Kyle Monongai in like the 6th or the 7th, so one that's really going to threaten. He's more of a big body guy, so he might compete with the Roschon Johnson role, but even with them not adding a running back with the first 4 or 5 rounds, adding in those weapons in Colston Loveland and also Luther Burden, I think it just opens up the running lanes even more. The boxes are going to be well and truly light that they're going to be coming up against. So I think that'll just go in his favor. Definitely a sneaky little one. I know pre-draft I was so completely off DeAndre Swift. I had absolutely no shares and there was always deals going around. But if you held on, you got lucky. Yeah, the gamble pulled off, to say the least.
Look, it's not completely over yet in terms of, as I said, they might go and pick up another running back in free agency, which is still open. Obviously, they can pick up a running back at any time they choose to. So, yeah, as I said, there is rumours of Nick Chubb. And look, even if Nick Chubb did come across to the Bears, I don't know if he would take majority of the work anyway. It'd be more of a split backfield between him and Swift. I think Chubb might take goal line carries if that's the case. Yes, that sort of hurts Swift to a degree, but I think majority of especially first down opportunities and maybe even passing or third downs as well, Swift might be more involved. So look, there's upside there for Swift still. I still think he's a pretty good running back. I mean, there's always been problems with Swift about blocking. He's not really a good pass protector as a running back, and you sort of have to be at this level to stay on the field a bit more often, and he doesn't do that, which is coaches hate that shit. So, but look, at the same time, man, I think it's pretty positive that they haven't addressed the RB room to this point just for Swift. Another man that I want to mention in the same running back, well, not in the same running back room, but another running back would be Isaiah Pacheco. I was very, very certain, actually, that they would go and address a running back early on in the draft. But this is positive for Isaiah Pacheco. I mean, I think he's got 1 year left in his contract. I think he's going into his contract year. But again, it's just him and Kareem Hunt. So yes, he still has to compete with Kareem Hunt in training camp to get the number one spot. But in the preseason last year, Isaiah Pacheco was going, second, third round in fantasy drafts. It was pretty much him to be the bell cow. And then he broke his leg in week one, and that sort of hampered everything on Isaiah Pacheco. So let's see what he does this offseason. He looked pretty cooked coming back when he came back late in the year. Looked irrelevant, to be honest with you. But again, he wouldn't have been prepared and ready to go. So it was a tough position for him to come back. But hey, very positive outcome for him at this point.
Yeah, and I think with the main thing with Pacheco, it was very telling that they didn't add another running back. They must be confident in not only his skill set, but also his health. You could definitely tell that coming back at the back end of last year, he just wasn't the same runner that he was pre-injury. And yeah, I remember too, in the redraft season, during the preseason, he was going as a top 8 running back, I think. So super high compared to where he's valued now. I know for us in our show a few weeks back when we had our Dynasty sells, he was a big one for me, Isaiah Pacheco. Even still, if you were to get around a mid-second, I think I'd still be happy with that. But the ceiling that he has at the moment, he could get back to a top 12 running back. And in that contract year, that's something that we love to picture on guys, because they're playing for the next lot of cash. So it'd be good to see another gamble that paid off if you held on to Pacheco.
Yeah, I agree, mate. And look, you might get a bit of value for Pacheco as well. I mean, obviously, in months down the track, we'll do some more episodes on, we'll circle some guys that we believe is good value at their ADP. And I truly do believe that Isaiah Pacheco might be that value at this point in time. You might get him in the 5th, 6th round. Yes, he's still competing against Kareem Hunt. Don't get me wrong. It's not certain that he's going to be the RB1. But, if I had to make an early prediction, he would be the RB1 coming into the year. And then Kareem Hunt would sort of help out where required. But, yeah, I think it's positive. And, again, they could address another RB. They could go get Nick Chubb themselves or get another RB if that's Thatcher. Like J.K. Dobbins is still available, I'm pretty sure, too. So, they can go out and get an experienced running back. But it seems like if they were going to address running back, they would have just drafted one, and they didn't. So I think this is very positive. Very, very positive for Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah. And that's a good tell, just kind of touching on that. Like if they aren't addressing that position where we all clearly thought it was a huge need, just goes to show how confident they are in these players in the back end. So trust what these moves are saying, in the background and lead with that. But for me to kick things off on my end and just going along with the Bills homerism, I think the Bills offensive weapons had a huge win. Kincaid, Coleman, and also James Cook. They didn't address any real offensive pieces during the draft. I think they took a blocking tight end in the 5th and a wide receiver flyer in the 7th. So no real issue there. They also did sign Elijah Moore in I think in the past week they signed him to a 1 year couple million deal. So nothing too extravagant. But yeah, I think just going to show how Kincaid and Coleman kind of were lackluster last year. I think the Bills management are really keen on these guys moving forward, and just kind of goes to show, we had it shown a couple of weeks ago that Kincaid, he was injured for a lot of the year. Maybe they're kind of leaning more on that, and they hope that those guys are going to come to start the year. But and on the terms of James Cook, no running back was drafted at all. So, and I still, that's a very murky situation with his contract situation and negotiation. We hope that he doesn't hold out to start the season and they get something work done beforehand. But because we've just seen, if these players are holding out, they're not getting those reps in the preseason and training camp, then their bodies just aren't ready to handle the workload, like we saw Brandon Ayuk, for instance, last year. But Bills offense, huge winners for me in terms of fantasy.
Yeah, on the James Cook end of things, he's sort of been, he's looking for that big payday. He wants to be paid, I guess, top running back money at some point, which is I'm pretty sure it's looming. I'm pretty sure he's in his contract year, end of the year. So the fact that they haven't addressed running back, well, haven't needed to address running back, to be fair, but obviously no concerns at this point to move on from him, which is a good thing. And look, guys in contract years with a point to prove, James Cook could go berserk this year in a very high-powered offense. He did last year, don't get me wrong. And look, especially in the playoffs too, it sort of showed that when they moved away from James Cook, the offense sort of stalled a little bit, especially in that playoff game against
they did. The Chiefs.
The offense stalled a little bit there, and then nothing really came to fruition when James Cook didn't get the ball. He had 100 yards in the first half from memory. So feed James Cook. I mean, he was a big sell for me, a month or two ago, just due to the fact that he's put up monster TD numbers, should I say? And look, I don't think he can reflect. I still believe that. But yardage can also improve too. He could have 1,200 yards with less TDs. So I agree, man. I think James Cook. I think Kincaid. Yep, positive. Keon Coleman. Yeah, I'm not sure we're going to get out of Keon Coleman just yet. I need to see more of it. It was too inconsistent for me. Yes, he was in and out of the lineup, which doesn't help. But I felt for the most part he was very inconsistent in the year. And very limited in what he can actually do too. So we'll see how he goes. But mate, another big win for me, I thought was Chase Brown. I thought was another one for me personally. I thought he had a monster year last year and solidified that RB1. And obviously the Bengals do agree with that too, that they didn't actually try and draft an RB in the draft. I didn't think they would. To be honest, I thought they had bigger needs, and they did. Don't get me wrong, but you could always use a 5th, 6th round pick on a running back, and they didn't do it at all. So positive signs there for Chase Brown. And look, he'll be going very, very high in drafts or mock drafts as such. If that's where you're at the moment, he could have 2nd round capital in fantasy drafts come drafting season. I think he could have another monster year.
Yeah, everything kind of lined up for Chase Brown. And just on that, Mav, I think the Bengals did add Taj Brooks. And I think in the 6th or 7th round. So still not a very, I think more so just a depth piece. Nothing that's going to really be of a threat to Chase Brown.
They haven't got an RB2, to be fair.
They don't. Khalil Herbert is out the door. I think he went to the Colts to back up JT there. So yeah, Chase Brown was a huge win, and he was a big question mark. I was on the same page as you. I thought they had way more needs that needed to be addressed, especially on that defense. Which they spent a lot of their draft capital on. So it's definitely wheels up for Chase Brown this year. I think after this year, he goes into his contract year. So if he goes flying this year, I'd be looking to offload him when you can. That'd be one to watch for me. But yeah, Chase Brown, big winner.
Don't get me wrong. He's got Burrow and Chase and Higgins. So he's got plenty of other offensive options there. But if we're talking running back, and we're talking about bell cows, right? I love bell cows. We need to make a meme for that. But he has bell cow potential next year. There's no one taking touches off him, really. The only thing would be is Joe Burrow throws 50 times a game. Possible, sure, don't get me wrong, but unlikely at the same time. So I think Chase Brown was a massive winner. I also thought the same thing for if we're going to turn to the Titans, mate. I thought Calvin Ridley and And Tony Pollard themselves were big winners. I'll touch on Pollard, you touch on Calvin Ridley. But, Pollard for himself, he's got Tajay Spears there, so there's a bit of competition there for the RB1. But, when you draft a new QB at QB1, you want to make sure that you try and address running back, maybe in the second, third, fourth round as such to complement with a QB. They didn't do that. So, they believe in Pollard and Spears. I think Pollard had a pretty good year. He was battling a toe injury. I think it was turf toe, actually, for majority of the year, or the second half of the year as such, and that really hampered his play, and played through majority of the time injured. And I thought he was pretty good for the most part, but, fully healthy. We saw it for the first 5, 6, 7 weeks. When he's fully healthy, he puts up some monster numbers, and there's probably a big chance he finishes the RB too. And same with Ridley on the other end, man. As a wide receiver, I truly believe that there's he's the wide receiver 1 with the new QB that loves to sling it. So real opportunity there for a nice season for Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, and both of those players, just quietly, they had very, very quiet 1,000-yard seasons. So Tony Pollard, looking at it, 260 rushing attempts for 1,079 yards. I could have taken a stab at that. I would have guessed around 800 rushing yards. So it's just a bit surprising given that offense, how much he was able to produce. And looking at Calvin Ridley, he just snuck over 1,000 yards too. So, and with the QB carousel that they had going on, Mason Rudolph, Will Levis, there's just going to be a lot more stability in this Titans offense. They spend the first overall pick on Cam Ward. They've touched on the offensive line and free agency and a little bit during the draft. They did add a couple of more pass catchers to that receiving room, but very, very late guys like L.A.K. O'Mana and Xavier Strepo, very, very late round picks, even undrafted signings. So I think Calvin Ridley, if he was able to pull off a 1,000-yard season with the likes of Will Levis and Mason Rudolph, I think he's primed. He could end up with 1,200 yards and 8 to 10 touchdowns. I wouldn't be surprised by that. And I think he's flying very, very under the radar.
And especially the Titans, they won't be winning many games, you'd imagine. They probably have between 5 to 7 wins on the year. So you'd imagine they'll be playing from behind a lot too. So, game script will be in his favour where the ball gets flinged around a bit more too. So, and that's good for Pollard and Spears, might I add, for being pass catching backs as well. So they can both do it. Spears is very much very similar to Pollard in his own right too. So, that's probably going to be a 70-30, 60-40 split, maybe you'd imagine. But again, Pollard, he sort of makes do of what he can actually do as well. He's very efficient with his touches as well. So it's I think it's quite nice, and look, could be a very solid 7th, 8th round option in fantasy drafts when that season comes around. I think that's what he was last year, and I don't see that being any different. So that's good for him.
I think they're both. Sorry, Matt. I think just quickly, they're both sneaky buy low targets if you're contending in Dynasty. I think you can get Tony Pollard and Calvin Ridley very, very cheap, and I think they'll produce again next year.
For sure. There's a few QB winners as well. I'll touch on Trevor Lawrence as such. I thought he was probably the biggest winner out of all the QBs that we've got in the league. He's going to get an elite offensive weapon in Travis Hunter in the room, which is who knows what Travis Hunter could be. As I said in previous episodes before, there's comparisons of him with Justin Jefferson. So if you compare Justin Jefferson and Brian Thomas Jr. in an offense, God, that's going to be beautiful to watch. And someone has to throw the ball to these guys, and that's Trevor Lawrence. So I'm expecting a bit more from Trevor Lawrence this year. I'm expecting him to go that next step. Liam Cohen, obviously in the house too, is going to be quite interesting. Obviously a very offensive-minded head coach. So he might get the best out of Trevor Lawrence. He got the best out of Baker Mayfield. So, we all had Trevor Lawrence as a higher profile than Baker Mayfield. It was the next big thing coming out of college, Trevor Lawrence. And look, at this point, I don't think that's been the case. But there's still a lot of potential left in Trevor Lawrence's wheelbag.
Yeah, I love Trevor Lawrence this offseason. I was high on him pre-draft and post-draft. It's just even sweeter. They did also add Bashal Tootin, who's more of a pass-catching running back.
Yeah.
So that's another weapon there. I think just looking at Trevor Lawrence's, I guess, kind of history in his past years, he hasn't had any seasons where he's thrown over 25 touchdowns. I think this year he throws 30 to 35. I'm expecting it. Would not be surprised by it at all.
He has to.
Has to. I think, and this year, this is his prove it year. He's got everything now for him. The O line's not too bad. He's got the best weapons that he's had. He just has to string it all together. Hopefully, he stays healthy. But yeah, I think with that addition of Travis Hunter, and we've got a Travis Hunter super fan here. Yeah, like we mentioned during the watch along, such a polarizing prospect, and the ceiling is the absolute. It's absolutely through the roof. With Travis Hunter. So yeah, hopefully things can start to click together for Trevor Lawrence and he can have a huge year.
Yeah, for sure, man. Caleb Williams, I thought was another big win too.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, he was huge, man. I mean, look, he's going into his second year, so you know we expect improvement, but at the same time, he'll also be scattered a lot now too. So yeah, we a lot more tape on Caleb Williams at the NFL level, and they'll try and scheme around how his play style is. But hey, he's got more weapons to play with now with Loveland in the house. He's also got DJ Moore, Roma Dunze now, and also Luther Burden. So my camera's just chucking out here. I'm still with you. I'll fix that in a second. But yeah, Luther Burden and Caleb Williams is a massive win.
Yeah, and I think like looking at these quarterback wins, because we've got a couple more just to touch on, Drake May and CJ Stroud. The one thing that they kind of had in common, they've added huge offensive pieces to this offense, whether it be in the O-line, the receiving room, or even the running backs. Running backs are definitely going to help support and take some of the pressure off of the quarterback. So it's just a thing to look for at next year's draft. At the end of it, if you kind of get an edge in your leagues and try and work out what quarterbacks you should be targeting, look at the quarterbacks where their teams invested a whole heap more in that offense, because it's going to be a good tell, and they're definitely going to project to perform better than the situation they were in the year prior.
Yeah, I agree, mate. I truly agree. Look, I can possibly see Caleb Williams finishing as a top 12 QB. My camera's on again, man. This thing's rubbish. Yeah, it's I really can see that happening. But we'll soon find out to see what it actually is. But what else have you got, mate?
So just I skimmed over pretty quickly over Drake May and CJ Stroud, so I'll just take us back there a little bit. Drake May, we've got to give him some love being the thumbnail of our video tonight, but they just hit on everything that they needed to. The New England Patriots, they spent a whole heap of cash on defense in free agency, and it kind of had us thinking, you know, what are they looking to do here? But adding Will Campbell with the 4th overall pick, adding in Trey Henderson, who's just a very elite pass blocker. Pass blocker and also a pass catcher. I think, and also Stephon Diggs during free agency. I think it's just going to be absolutely wheels up for Drake May. Like, given how much he rushed last year, I think he'd be top 6. That's probably where my redraft rankings are probably going to sit. He's probably going to be my 6th quarterback there. So I just think, yeah, he's just the Patriots definitely listened to everything that they needed to get, and he's going to be in a great position compared to the absolute shit show he was in last year. And just to touch it on CJ Stroud, Higgins and Noel, Noel, rather. I've been saying Noel so much about him, but just we saw what that offense looked like and what CJ Stroud looked like last year when Nico and Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell went down. Then just bolstering up that receiving room, I think he's going to have an outstanding year. He's going to absolutely come off that sophomore slump. I could see him throwing 35 touchdowns. He doesn't really add anything on the rushing game, but yeah, I think he's going to have an absolute huge year coming up.
Yeah, I think that's where CJ Stroud sort of falls apart though for fantasy. Is there's no upside in the rushing game compared to Drake May as such. You know, that's probably his biggest flaw. You know, Drake May will have probably 5 to 6 rushing touchdowns in the maybe even more, depending on how he develops, obviously. But you know, that's 40 odd points there in itself, not including yards. So yeah, but then again, CJ Stroud can throw for 4 or 5 touchdowns in one single game in itself. So there's comparisons here, I suppose, which is good and bad, I suppose. But Drake May, man, I truly agree. He had a bonfire last year on offense, and he still played really well with what he had. Averaged some really, really good numbers. It came in from like week 5 or week 4 or 5, whatever it was onwards, and played really well. I think Booty was his best option at one point. So, No, I agree, mate. Stephon Diggs. We're not sure when he's coming back. Is he due for week 1? We're not sure. He's up in the clouds at this point, coming off that ACL. But if he is, massive win there for Drake May. And if he's not, he'll be back by week 3, week 4 anyway. So
yeah,
there's time for Stephon Diggs to get right. But no, I agree with both those players, man. I think that's a really good shout. Same with Bryce Young too. If you want to chuck Bryce Young in there,
yep.
They've addressed wide receiver with pick 7. Ted McMillan's in the house, or was it pick 6? Pick 6 it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, 6 or 8, something. Yeah, definitely top 8.
So Ted McMillan comes in the house. He's a big 6'5" receiver. I sort of compare him to Mike Evans personally. Everyone has their comparisons, but they're very similar builds and styles. So if they can have Ted McMillan as the alpha number 1 receiver in the house, which is a beautiful thing to have, is great. Obviously, they still have Thielen, who was productive when he played. Coker, who's made a really good impression on the Panthers in that first year, undrafted free agent, which has been a great get. And you still have Leggett there as an option there as well. So 4 decent options for Bryce Young to throw to, who responded well from coming off the bench or coming back into the starting lineup after getting benched, was quite positive, I thought too. So looking really nicely at Bryce Young. I can possibly see a high-end QB2 there. But again, as a number 1 pick, I'm probably looking for a bit more out of Bryce Young. But again, more value in your drafts.
Yeah, and also a sneaky ad they brought in was Trevor Etienne. He's a good little pass-catching running back. So again, just another weapon for Bryce Young. He also adds a little bit of sneaky volume with rushing. He might get 200 rushing yards, which is definitely better than what CJ Stroud is going to offer. But yeah, he's again, given the situation he was put in his rookie year with all the coaching carousel and just the absolute fire pit that kind of went on, he's definitely primed to be in a better spot. And yeah, just kind of recapping off all these quarterbacks, they've all had huge additions that are definitely going to help improve them for the upcoming season.
Yeah, bloody oath. Couldn't agree more, mate. Couldn't agree more. If we move down to our losers, I don't know. I haven't got many other winners on top of my head, but unless you've got any.
Yeah, just looking at it, like I kind of touched on earlier, you want to try and look at running backs that didn't really have any competition added, or if they did, it's very late round picks. Same with wide receivers, but don't get kind of dismissed that, for instance, Brian Thomas Jr., yes, they added Travis Hunter with the 2nd round pick, but those two guys can definitely eat in the same offense. We've seen it with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, so don't worry too much about that. But ideally, just looking at players, if it's running backs, if they didn't add someone of note, of talent in that room, and then the same thing with quarterbacks, if they added a heap of talent either on the offensive line or added more offensive weapons, they're definitely going to be winners for us.
Agreed. And then the biggest losers, mate, or losers as such. The biggest loser is actually not a bad show. Back in its prime, to be honest. I've been watching recently. I've actually been watching America's Got Talent.
Yeah, right. Interesting.
I know it's a bit weird. It's just like a 40-year-old Matt here in the house, but no, it's I have actually been enjoying the America's Got Talent recently, more so past episodes, and mate, there's some talent out there, and I might have to get up there and do some podcasting and see if I get a few votes.
Right, get up there, throw up your sleeper leagues, all your number 1 finishes for that year. You'll have my vote, that's for sure.
Coming with all my rings, they'll be pretty impressed. We'll see how we go there. But no, my biggest loser out of all this was definitely Najee Harris, man. We were so high on Najee Harris when we got signed to the Chargers, and then they go out and draft Marion Hampton. So that really hurts him. Now I'm not sure how this looks like for week 1. Is it going to be a split backfield? Is it going to be Hampton's offense and then Najee pitch hits? He's only on a 1-year deal, so they don't really owe him anything, to be fair. Or is Najee going to be the bell cow back for a year and then it's Hampton after that? Not sure, but at the same time, they love using rookie running backs. If you draft one in the 1st or 2nd round, they're going to flog them. So, unfortunately, Najee Harris is a big loser here. Yes, he's in a run-first offense and a Greg Roman offense that loves running the pill down the throat of defenses as such, but that could also be Hampton doing that too.
Yeah, huge egg on my face with the Najee Harris outcome. I just thought, given the situation, I didn't think Chargers would invest in such a high pick in a running back, but the draft just fell to them, and it just lined up so well with what they were chasing. But I just think in terms of Najee, my projection is Marion Hampton will start off a little bit slow. That's what I'm hoping for. And if Najee has a couple of early weeks, very well could have a double rushing touchdown game in the first few weeks with how that offense kind of runs. So as soon as that happens, I will be selling all of my Najee Harris shares on the hopes that people think that get a little bit worried about Hampton and Najee kind of splitting there. But yeah, huge loss. And we've seen first round running backs, they pretty much always hit. Saquon Barkley, CMC, Bijan, just to name a few. Breece Hall, I think, was a back end of the first. Even Najee Harris himself was a back end of the first round pick, and he was pretty solid there for the first few years. Hasn't not had 1,000-yard rushing yard season. So yeah, huge loser.
If you had to guess what ranking currently Najee Harris is at, what would you guess?
I'd say mid-30s, mid to late 30s.
It's a good guess.
Oh, not bad.
32.
32.
Currently.
Yeah, okay.
So he's currently behind the guys that we've just mentioned: Tony Pollard, Isaiah Pacheco, DeAndre Swift, Brian Robinson, who actually should have been in the winners category, as well, and Tyrone Tracy. He's behind those guys.
Yeah, well, I think I'll take all of them except Tyrone Tracy ahead of Najee Harris. So yeah, that's still got a little bit of value. That might have to go shop a couple deals after this, man. We'll see.
Hampton's currently at RB 17, so
yeah,
sneaky value there for him if that's the case. If he's going to be the RB one at the Chargers, RB 17 might be very nice. But anyway, we'll come up to that when the draft season comes around. But yeah, no, huge loser for Najee Harris there for sure, man. I thought that was such a pain in the ass for both of us. I thought we were both pretty high on him too. So
yep,
shit happens, I suppose. Ramondre Stevenson was another one, mate. If we're talking about running backs, they addressed running backs straight away, early second round. The Pats did, and getting in Travion Henderson. That sucks if you're a Ramondre Stevenson owner. I don't know who they are, but I'm one of them. Unfortunately, in our Insight Dynasty League. So that's a bit of a shame, but it is what it is. Ramondre is a massive loser. I don't know what that offense is going to look like at first. Is it going to be Ramondre taking first down opportunities and then Travion taking all the rest? Who's taking goal line carries? Is that Ramondre? Is there a world where these guys could be Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery? David Montgomery at one stage was in this point in his career where everyone was a bit off him. Came out of the Bears and he was okay at the Bears, but went to the Lions and then they had Gibbs. So can they be Sonic and Knuckles? Maybe. There's options there for him, but yeah, at this point in time, it's a bit of a bugger for Ramondre.
Yeah, that it's in the realm of possibilities having that 1-2 punch, but Trey Henderson, he does, in Ramondre's kind of defense, he does kind of complement Ramondre. Very, like we mentioned earlier, just an absolute gun in the passing game. So if Ramondre is going to get that thumper work, he might steal a couple of the goal line carries. Yeah, it's just going to all depend. But I think for the most part, very similar to Najee, his value's nuked. I know for one, Mav, I definitely won't be trading for Ramondre in that league off you anytime soon. I know I picked him up pre-draft for like a future late second, but now people can't even give him away for like a late third in this class. So yeah, we'll all see kind of how
the same token. I wouldn't be surprised if Travion, should I say, has between 8 and 10 carries a game.
He doesn't need many.
That's also Jimmy Gibbs numbers. Well, sort of. Jimmy had more by the time he got going, but if this was going to work and they turned out to be a Jahmyr Gibbs Montgomery 1-2 punch, there's value for both running backs. So, we'll see how that looks like. But at early stages, Ramondre is definitely a big loser out of all this.
Yeah. And to jump in on these biggest losers, I thought Tyrone Tracy was a huge loser. Giants added Cam Scatterbo, someone who I think we're all pretty high on coming into the draft. We just wanted to see that draft capital and landing spot. And at the Giants, and you could see a clip when Brian Daboll and the guys locked in this pick, they were over the moon. They absolutely love Cam Scatterbo. He kind of profiles like he can do it all. He's a bigger dude. He can carry the workload. He breaks a huge amount of tackles, and he's also super efficient in the passing game. So For Tyrone Tracy, given I think he was a 6th or 7th round pick last year, they don't really have any ties to him. Don't owe him anything. I could see him be used in the slot. They don't really have a slot presence at the moment, so you could pick up a couple of cheap receptions there. But yeah, I think he's definitely tanked a whole heap as well.
Well, he used to be a wide receiver, Tyrone Tracy, so that makes sense that he goes to the slot whenever Scatterbo's on the field. But Scatterbo's a very physical running back, and that's sort of not what Tyrone Tracy does. I mean, Tyrone Tracy could, a bit of a change of pace running back, sure. Don't get me wrong. He'd suit that and complement that role really well. But, Cam Scatterbo was taken the 4th round still, though, so they don't know him a hell of a lot. But the fit just makes so much sense.
Yeah, it does. And given the strength of the running back class, even that 4th round pick, they might have projected him a little bit higher, just given with how deep that class was. So that's maybe why he slipped. Slipped a little bit. But early 4th round pick, yeah, it's just, oh man, I'm so high on Cam Scatterbo and so low on Tyrone Tracy. But yeah, and a lot of the losers too that we're talking about, a lot of them are running backs. As we mentioned, there's a whole heap. Just to throw a couple of more in that we probably don't need to spend too much time on is Blake Corum and Jalen Warren. Jalen Warren's a very obvious one. They added Caleb Johnson in the 3rd round, and he's just such a great fit for that offense. He's just a huge, big body. They can just give him everything. And he complements that outside run scheme a whole lot. I still think Jalen Warren can kind of complement, but he's not under, he signed a free agent tender or something like that. So they don't really owe him anything after this year.
Just depth piece at this point.
Yeah, just a depth piece. He can catch passes, a little bit of a change of pace back, but I don't think he's going to be offering too much in terms of fantasy.
Yeah, no, I agree, mate. I truly do agree. Blake Corum back up. Kyron Williams is probably still going to be taking majority of the carries anyway. So again, opportunity there for Kyron Williams to have another RB1 season. Probably going to happen if he doesn't get injured. That's probably about right. I also think that if we're going to go to wide receivers, I thought DJ Moore was actually a massive loser out of this too. They addressed 2 offensive options, which again makes it a bit more crowded for him. So obviously Loveland and Luther Burden, we mentioned this before, and mentioning that Caleb Williams is a massive winner, and he absolutely is. But there's also a loser out of this as well, and that's the number 1 receiver at the Bears at DJ Moore. So look, not to say that he can't put up a good stat line, he can, but I truly believe that this is going to be a very inconsistent season for DJ Moore. It might be he might have 4-5 weeks in the year he has a really nice score, very productive. But also, I wouldn't be surprised if guys like Loveland have a good week. He has 2 touchdowns in a few games, or Luther Burden gets more involved, or Roma Dunze breaks out. Like there's so much opportunity here for this whole Bears offense to flourish. And unfortunately, when we're talking about fantasy, we want to see more production out of their number 1s. And DJ Moore, albeit being in the number 1, we're not sure what that's going to look like.
Yeah, and that's definitely going to be a team to watch during OTAs. I think that'll probably be the most kind of watch to see how that situation plays out with all the mouths they have to feed. And just given with Ben Johnson coming in, yeah, it's just a lot of question marks on how he views DJ Moore in that light. He's the eldest there, the eldest veteran wide receiver in that pack. He's still super talented. Don't get us wrong by that, but just given the situation, given that he wasn't a choice made by this new head coaching regime. And there was also talks of him maybe getting traded during the draft with how many mouths they kind of added in there. So yeah, definitely one to watch. I still think he is going to be good, just given the talent and given the new rookie additions. They are going to take a little bit to get unlocked, but yeah, definitely a murky situation for Dynasty moving forward. I think for DJ Moore.
At the same time, like Loveland too. We had a mock draft last week. He slipped to the 2nd round, mid-2nd round even. So like it's just again a very murky situation, as you said, for anyone really at the Bears. So value, sure, don't get me wrong, but you can't support 4 offensive weapons and they can all be fantasy relevant throughout every single week of the season. So unfortunately, someone will always lose out. And this offense, maybe it's Luther Burden doesn't get going at all. And DJ Moore, Adunze, and Loveland eat as well. they still have Zacchaeus there that might play the slot. He's still a sneaky option. Played pretty well last year, might I add. Came up big for the Commanders, but he's in the house too, man. There's another option they've got there too. I don't think he's going to be relevant as such, but it's just another option in that offense that we'll see some field at some point in time. And another Cole Kmet. I don't mind Cole Kmet as a player. Don't get me wrong, but massive loser. Pretty much lost his position, lost his starting role. He's now a depth piece for Loveland. So unless they decide they want to go 2 tight end sets, which would again affect another wide receiver, he's a big loser out of this too, because essentially he might see 30% of snaps.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and just given the talent as well, like just looking at all those pass catches, they're all taken so high. Like Roma Dunze, top 10 pick, Luther Burden, early second, Colson Loveland, top 10, and DJ Moore, I think, was a second round pick too when he was drafted. So it's not like he's kind of competing against bums. So yeah, it will be definitely one to monitor. Who knows? They could come out and Ben Johnson's just like, you know what, screw it. Let's get Caleb Williams to throw the ball 40 times a game with all the weapons they have, and also with how lackluster the running back room is. So could kind of line up, but yeah, we'll just one to monitor for sure. One to wait and see.
Yeah, and Quinton Johnston, mate, was another one, big loser.
Huge.
He's been a big loser for a while, to be honest. This was probably not surprising that they went and addressed it. Quinton Johnston did have first round capital and hasn't really lived up to his name to this point. So they decided to go and get a like for like and go and draft Trey Harris, who can play that Quinton Johnston role with less drops. So that's going to be one to watch. Unfortunately for Johnston, I don't think he's too fantasy relevant at this point. Maybe for Dynasty, but around Dynasty leagues, he doesn't really have much value to this point anyway, and definitely not now with Trey Harris in the house. Trey Harris in the house.
Trey Harris, yeah.
But yeah, you know what I mean. Like, unfortunately, that hurts him.
Yeah, and Trey Harris, yeah, like you said, it is a like for like. They play on that outside. They love kind of going deep, and Trey Harris unfortunately can't catch the ball. So yeah, Quinton Johnston's job is well and truly in danger. And just looking at it, I really like Trey Harris in rookie drafts, just to kind of segue a little bit. Mid-second round pick. Quinton Johnston had 8 touchdowns last year, and he's an absolute scrub. So if they can put Trey Harris in and he can kind of come through, if he has that touchdown upside, I think he's going to be a bit of a sneaky play in that regard. But just to kind of keep the ball rolling on wide receivers, I thought a little bit controversial. I thought Jamison Williams was a bit of a loser, just given just the Lions' actions. In that third round, they sent their third round in this year's draft, and then also 2 future thirds to move up and get Isaac Tesla. So I know for me, Isaac Tesla definitely wasn't on my radar at all. I hadn't even heard of the guy when we were kind of heading in and when he was drafted to the Lions. But just given Jamison Williams, his off the field issues and behavior issues, he's coming into a contract year. There's a whole lot of money on that offensive line and with Jared Goff, and I'm sure they want to pay Gibbs over Jamison Williams in a couple of years anyhow. So I think he's probably going to be the one to go after this year.
Fair enough, mate. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Another one was Christian Kirk, mate. Another one, big loser. And you know what? You can almost chuck in Tank Dell into that same conversation too.
Yeah.
Tank Dell is going to be missing majority of next year. So more unknown. How does he recover? How does he come back? He really struggled last year when it was a pretty crowded house with Diggs, Nico Collins, and himself. And look, he was really unproductive when he was playing. Now he's got Collins, Noel, Christian Kirk, and Nico Collins when he's healthy. So a lot of competition there for Tank Dell. And a lot of competition there for Christian Kirk too. He hasn't even played a snap yet in the Texans offense, and we were talking about him being a bit of an unknown. So I'd like to see OTA's training camp to see where he lines up. If that's as a slot receiver, I'm a bit more positive. I think he probably will be. But you'd think Jaden Higgins and Nico Collins are playing the outside with Christian Kirk playing on the inside. And it could be good, but again, more mouths to feed there at the Texans.
Yeah, it's definitely not a great look for Christian Kirk. Similar to the other veterans that we're talking about. The rookies they tend to start a little bit slower. So again, if he kind of starts the year hot, I'd be looking to move Christian Kirk as soon as I could, just because we know that usually after the bye week, midweek, mid-season, or even back into the year, those wide receivers really start coming to light, and Christian Kirk could well and truly be out of a job rather. So yeah, definitely a big loser. And you can also tie in Xavier Legette into that conversation as well. Yeah, like we mentioned, Bryce Young's a winner, but Xavier Legette with that huge addition in that wide receiver room with Ted McMillan, there's absolutely no realm that he's going to be the number one option on that team, and maybe even the second or third option, like you said.
Especially with the draft capital they invested into. I mean, he was going mid-first round. Oh, not mid-first round, but he's probably going early second round in rookie drafts last year. They invested I think it was a back end first. I think it was pick 32 to be exact. I think it was the last pick of the day on day one of the draft last year into Xavier Legette, and didn't clips the magic 500 yards, which is the magic number of boom or bust players. So based off that knowledge, he's got a 2% chance of being fantasy relevant in his career. So numbers probably say that's not going to work out for him, and especially now they've addressed wide receiver straight away with another top pick, Bryce Young. It's probably best to say that Xavier Legette it's pretty much close to done to his for fantasy relevancy.
Yeah, the light is very, very dim for Xavier Legette. That is for sure. But you never know. He could kind of have the same thing if he has a couple of big weeks. Who knows? If he is the number 2 target when Thielen kind of retires, is headed out the door. We're both on the Coca side. So it says a lot that a first round talent in Xavier Legette is going to be beaten out by an undrafted free agent. Yeah, it says a lot about his prospect profile. But
and just scouts.
All
the scouts. It says a lot about the scouts. If you take an undrafted free agent, then 32 teams have missed out on him.
Yeah. And was that when Dave Canales came on board, or was that before Dave Canales? Yeah. So it's can't really blame that one on the old regime either. So the scouting's going to get a smack with that one. But Mav, just looking at our list here, mate, the last one that we really had was Tua Tagovailoa. This was one that I threw in as a little bit of a sneaky loser. Just Tua, we saw what happened last year when he was injured. Their offensive line was absolutely horrid, and that was with Terron Armstead still playing in the NFL. He retired, I think, a couple of months ago, and they only added a guard, I believe, in the second round of the whole draft. So I think that line, that he's just going to be facing so much pressure. You definitely don't want to project an injury, but I know for myself, I'm going to be picking up that Dolphins QB2 and just kind of waiting, because I don't think, Zach Wilson, I don't think Tua is going to be upright very much this year. They just didn't really do anything to help him out. And God forbid if he has another concussion, that's probably him done. So
I will say though, when I do agree obviously with what we're saying, but from what I noticed when he did come back from that concussion last year, he was getting the ball out of the pocket a lot quicker because he was worried about the added pressure and obviously getting another hit too. So a big beneficiary out of that was the tight end, Jonnu Smith. He absolutely ate from the ball coming out quickly. And then Tyreek Hill was a big loser out of that too, because he wasn't having that opportunity to have those long balls because he couldn't get open and didn't have enough time to actually allow the offense to really open up and get free as well. So because the ball was coming out so quickly, so it was coming out within like 3 or 4 seconds. And Tyreek Hill was quick, but he's not that quick. So unfortunate for him. But we'll see how they go this year, man. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that Dolphins offense looks like, because
me too.
I'm really expecting more out of Jalen Waddle. I'm expecting more out of Tyreek Hill. Yes, he's getting a bit older, but I'm really interested to see how this offense sort of bounces back. Tyreek Hill, not Tyreek Hill. Tua's getting paid like nearly, I think it's $50 million a year. So they've invested a lot of cash into Tua. It's time to see a return of investment and get him into the playoffs and maybe even win a game. They're talented enough. We just haven't seen it for a longer period of time.
Yeah, and another thing to kind of watch with the Dolphins, their defense is going to be absolutely arse again this year. So they're going to be playing from behind a lot, similar to the Carolina Panthers. I think we mentioned it earlier in this pod. So yeah, definitely going to be a lot of opportunities. I'm just hoping for Tua that they're able to offer some sort of protection a lot more than what they did last year, so he can stay upright and stay in the game.
That's massive. That's crucial.
For sure.
All right, mate. I reckon that pretty much will end us off for the night. You and Dave have got the house for the next 2 weeks, mate. I'm on holidays. annual leave, 2 weeks paid from the Matrix. Thank you. I'm joking, but yeah, no, I'm off for 2 weeks, mate. So you won't see my face on this podcast for an extra 2 weeks. You might see some beer selfies along the way, out in Thailand on the beach or something like that, with a few lady boys. You never know what could happen, really. But one thing's for sure is I will be drinking beer. So
For sure.
But no, it's been awesome, man. It's been a great episode. I think this one was really good. I thought it was really insightful, and I had a blast, to be honest.
Yeah, it's good to kind of recap and look through, especially from a fantasy perspective. Now that we've had a couple of weeks post the draft, we've definitely digested and kind of have, I guess, clearer takes on kind of the position that we feel on a lot of these players. And just to touch on, very sad that Mav's going to be gone for a couple of weeks. DFab and I'm not too sure how we're going to go. I think we'll definitely be drinking beers throughout also, so we'll be with you there. I think we're going to look at a rebuilding show next week. So stay tuned for that one. If you're kind of looking to rebuild, don't know when to rebuild, what kind of the actions that you probably should be taking, make sure to tune into that one. And also just to touch on, guys, our Patreon is free for the NFL side of things. So if you love everything fantasy sports, the Insight guys are absolutely killing it. They've got access to all your major sports here, Australian sports included. So yeah, our NFL page is free. Our WhatsApp, if you want to talk trades, if you're in a rookie draft at the moment, and even if you're on the clock and you just want to have a little bit of advice on what direction you probably could take, please jump in over there. We're very active. It's all free. And following up this, the NRL and AFL shows are also on tonight, and I think they're coming live shortly. Little shout out to Matrix here in the chat. So yeah, make sure if you guys are keen on NRL or AFL and want to see what that's all about, the guys absolutely kill it in that area too.
Yeah, mate, and big shout out to Matrix. He's probably 10 beers deep at this point in time, and he's probably really real and ready to go for his show for NRL, and he'll probably come in and talk F1 or some bullshit like that. So, or WWE or something like that. He might talk about it. I don't know if he likes it, but anyway, back to my point. But no, awesome guys. Like, subscribe, give us some 5-star ratings. Any comments you got, much appreciated. And I won't catch you next week, but the Insight NFL show will catch you back next week.
We'll be back next week. See you guys.
I'm sick of your shit. Bye.
Little cameo, and I think you're on the money with that one, Mav. He looks blasted. So yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and he knows it too. I can see him in the background, and he's happy with it too. So we'll see you next week.
See you guys.